Have you ever had one of those moments where everything feels like it's falling apart, but somehow, right in the middle of the chaos, life throws you a twist so unexpected that it changes everything? You might be watching this video because that title made you pause for a second. Wait, she fixed her bra using a car window? And the driver was a CEO? Yeah, I know. Sounds like a bizarre rom-com plot or some viral TikTok confession, but let me promise you something right now. This story is real. And it's one you're not going to forget anytime soon. If you've ever had a wardrobe malfunction in public, you already know the sheer panic, the embarrassment, and the frantic search for any way to fix it before someone notices. Now imagine that moment happening on a blisteringly hot Tuesday afternoon, with no jacket, no cover, no friends around to help, and absolutely nowhere to hide. The kind of day where the sun is blinding, your skin sticks to your clothes, and you're just trying to make it through without breaking down. That was the exact kind of day this girl was having when something happened that would flip her entire world upside down. This isn't just a story about a girl and a bra. This is about timing, choices, and the kind of raw, real-life moments that YouTube Shorts and TikTok Reels barely scratch the surface of. It's about what happens when vulnerability crashes headfirst into fate, and two people from completely different worlds collide in the most awkward, unexpected, and yes, life-altering way. And before we get any further, let me be clear. By the end of this video, you'll find out exactly who that mysterious CEO was, why he was even there, and what happened after their strange, unforgettable first meeting. That's a promise. Now, let's get real for a second. Just you and me. Because if you're still watching, I already know something about you. You're not just here for drama. You're not just clicking through random videos to kill time. You're here because some part of you, deep down, is craving a story that makes you feel something. You want a story that's messy, awkward, funny, and just a little unbelievable, but true. Maybe you've been through your own rough patch lately. Maybe you've been feeling invisible, stuck, or like nothing meaningful ever happens anymore. If so, then you're going to see a piece of yourself in this girl's journey, whether you expect to or not. She didn't have a million followers or a perfect Instagram feed. She wasn't the type of girl who always has it together. In fact, when this story begins, she was at rock bottom. We're talking living paycheck to paycheck, grocery shopping with coupons, using a safety pin to hold her bag together kind of struggle. You know, that kind of broke where even a coffee feels like a luxury? That was her world. No backup plan. No family safety net. Just grit, scraped knees, and prayers whispered into a pillow at night. But she still showed up for life every single day. That kind of resilience? It matters. Especially in a world where people scroll past pain like it's just another filter. The story kicks off at a gas station. Not exactly the place you expect life to shift on its axis, right? But sometimes, the most ordinary places become the backdrop for the most extraordinary moments. She had just finished a long, sweaty walk from her part-time job. Her clothes clung to her skin from the heat, and she was just trying to refill her water bottle from the bathroom sink without getting weird looks from the cashier. But fate didn't wait for her to be ready. As she walked past a row of parked cars, her cheap bra strap snapped. Just like that. Pop. It didn't ask for permission. It didn't care if people were watching. It just gave out. And there she was, frozen, mortified, desperately clutching her top, scanning for any kind of cover or escape. Here's where most people would crumble, right? Just shut down, call someone, or hide in a bathroom and cry. But not her. She made a move that was part desperation, part genius, and 100% unforgettable. She spotted a parked luxury car, matte black, shiny chrome rims, the kind of thing you only see in YouTube car vlogs or celebrity reels. The windows were rolled up. The sun had turned them into mirrors. And that's when it hit her. If the window was reflective enough, maybe, just maybe, she could use it to fix herself fast. No fuss. No mirror selfies. Just raw survival. So, she rushed over, turned her back to the street, and began awkwardly trying to fix her bra, using the car window as a mirror. Her fingers fumbled. Her face flushed. Her heart pounded. She just needed 5 seconds. 5 seconds to pull herself together and disappear. But life doesn't work that way. Not when something big is about to happen. Because that's the exact moment the car door clicked open.
Boom.
Door swings. She freezes. And the driver? Not just any dude. Not your average gas station bro, or some random dad grabbing chips. He was wearing a tailored suit, designer watch, and that sharp, intimidating kind of presence that screams executive energy. You know what I mean? He had the posture, the confidence, the kind of face you see in those top 30 under 30 business lists or TEDx thumbnails. And the expression on his face when he saw her? That's what changed everything. She thought she was about to get yelled at, or laughed at, or worse, recorded and turned into a viral meme without her consent. But instead, he didn't say a word. He just stared, stunned, like the universe had just handed him something he wasn't ready for either. And that, my friend, was the moment their two worlds began to collide. Messily, unexpectedly, and completely out of the blue. Now, I know your brain is buzzing with questions. Who was he really? Why was someone like him parked there of all places? Was this just some rich guy with good manners? Or did he see something in her that reminded him of his own past? And what happened next? Did she run? Did he offer help? Did sparks fly? Or did it all come crashing down? Don't worry. We're getting there. Every second of this story matters, and trust me, the payoff is worth it. There are moments coming up that'll make you laugh out loud, moments that might hit you in the chest, and a few that will make you rethink how you see strangers, especially the ones who appear when you least expect them. So grab a drink, turn up the volume, and whatever you do, don't click away. Because what started as a bra malfunction is about to unfold into something so much deeper. A story of resilience, timing, unexpected kindness, and how one small, embarrassing moment can turn into the start of a completely new life. And just when you think you know where it's going, there's a twist. Right now, she's still standing there, heart racing, face flushed. And he's looking at her like she just crashed through his carefully curated world without warning. But what he says next, that's what shifts everything. And that's where we begin. I'm so sorry, she stammered, stepping back like she'd just touched fire. Her cheeks were burning. Her hands instinctively clutched at her chest, trying to hide what she'd just been fixing. The man standing in front of her, clean-cut jawline, expensive cologne you could almost smell from the screen, suit crisp like it had never seen a wrinkle, just stared for a moment longer, then was polite. But not in a creepy way. Not in that uncomfortable, leering kind of way. His expression wasn't disgust or amusement. It was something else entirely. Like recognition. Like he'd just remembered something important but couldn't place where. From. Then, just as she braced herself for the worst, for laughter, for judgment, for the "what the hell do you think you're doing to my car" reaction, he did something she didn't expect. He smiled. Not a full-on grin, not the smug smirk she was used to seeing from guys who thought they were better than her. Just a soft, startled kind of smile. The kind people give when they're surprised and curious. She nodded quickly, mumbling another apology, and started to walk away. Fast. Her eyes burned, not from the sun but from the sudden rush of humiliation. Her bra was still barely hanging on, her pride even less so, and she was ready to disappear, melt into the concrete, never be seen again. But then his voice stopped her. Deep, confident, and calm. "You okay?" he asked, as though the answer mattered. She didn't know how to respond. Because no, she wasn't okay. She hadn't been okay for a long time. But you can't just say that to a stranger in a suit. So she nodded again, not trusting herself to speak without her voice cracking. Now let's rewind just a bit, because to really understand this moment, you've got to know where she was coming from. Her name was Mia.
25.
Hustling 3 side gigs just to survive. She rented a room in a crumbling apartment above a laundromat, the kind where the floors creaked and the heat rattled like ghosts in the winter. Her dream? Fashion design. She used to sketch outfits between shifts, borrowing inspiration from thrift stores and Pinterest boards, always hoping that someday she could design clothes for real women like herself, women who didn't have model bodies or designer budgets. But dreams felt like luxury when rent was overdue and dinner was usually ramen or nothing. Her mom had passed when she was in high school, and her dad, well, She hadn't heard from him in years. She was used to being on her own, used to pushing through. But lately, even that grit was starting to crack. Now him, the man in the car, that was Daniel. Daniel Reed, CEO of a tech startup that had just been listed as one of the fastest growing in Silicon Valley. His face had been featured on Forbes and in viral YouTube interviews about leadership, innovation, and how to scale a billion-dollar company from your basement. But what none of those videos showed, what none of those press releases mentioned, was that Daniel had once been just as broke as Mia. Raised in a trailer park outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Single mom. Free school lunches. Nights spent coding websites on borrowed library computers. His rise wasn't polished, it was pure hustle. But over the years, as money came in, so did distance. He'd built walls, lost friends, gotten used to silence and strategy instead of connection. So when he saw Mia, so vulnerable, so real, something shifted. She reminded him of everything he'd buried under boardrooms and stock prices. But this wasn't a fairy tale moment. There was no magical background music or slow motion. Just two people, unexpectedly intersecting at a gas station, bound by nothing but a brief, embarrassing moment and something neither of them could name yet. Still, Daniel didn't walk away. "I wasn't trying to scare you," he added. "You just looked like you were in a rush. If you need anything, help, water, anything, I'm parked for a while." She shook her head. "I'm good. Thanks," she said quickly. But she wasn't. Not even close. Meanwhile, across the street, a pair of teenage boys with skateboards had noticed the interaction and started whispering, one nudging the other. Mia felt their eyes and suddenly felt twice as exposed. That's when Daniel did something strange. He walked around to the back of his car, popped the trunk, and pulled out a small bag. "Here," he said, handing it to her without fanfare. "Emergency stuff. There's a safety pin in there. Maybe a hair tie too." Mia hesitated. She didn't want to owe anyone anything, especially not some rich guy in a suit who looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not in her disaster of a Tuesday. But then she saw it. Real kindness. Not charity. Not pity. Just a quiet offer, with no strings attached. She took it. And in that moment, something in the universe quietly clicked. But here's where it gets even more interesting. What Mia didn't know was that Daniel wasn't just passing through. He was there for a reason, a meeting at the community center 2 blocks away, where his company was considering investing in a local initiative for youth entrepreneurship. He was supposed to be reviewing grant proposals and looking at spreadsheet projections. Instead, he was standing in the heat, handing a stranger a safety pin. And what Daniel didn't know was that Mia had applied for one of those grants 6 weeks ago, under a different name. She'd submitted her designs under Emmy Blake, a pen name she used online because she was scared no one would take a broke girl with a second-hand laptop seriously. And guess who had just reviewed her portfolio that morning? Yeah, you guessed it. None of this was clear to either of them just yet. But the threads were already being pulled together behind the scenes, like a slow-burn Netflix drama you didn't see coming. The kind that starts with something small, like a broken bra strap, and unfolds into something much, much bigger. And right as Mia turned to leave, holding the small bag like it was both a lifeline and a landmine, Daniel said something else. "You ever thought about designing clothes?" he asked casually, almost like it didn't matter. Her head jerked up. "Why?" she asked, immediately defensive. "Just a question," he replied. "You have an eye for detail. Most people wouldn't have noticed the tint in my window. You saw it in seconds." That comment lingered. Long after she walked away. Long after she patched herself up in the restroom of the gas station. Long after she stuffed the little bag into her tote and told herself to forget it ever happened. But she couldn't. Because for the first time in months, someone had seen her. Not the mess, not the broke girl fixing her bra in a parking lot, but her. The one with ideas and talent, and fire she'd been forced to suppress. And Daniel? He couldn't stop thinking about her either. Not in a romanticized, insta-love way, but in a deeper, quieter way. Something about her disruption, the way she'd unintentionally thrown him off his carefully constructed schedule, felt necessary. Like a reminder. Like the universe tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "You've forgotten who you are." But this story doesn't get neat or tidy from here. Because as you'll soon see, there are secrets on both sides. Daniel isn't just a CEO with a soft spot. He's hiding a decision that could jeopardize everything, including the very grant Mia applied for. And Mia? She's about to uncover a truth about her late mother that connects her to Daniel's company in a way that will shock them both. Neither of them knows it yet, but they're already standing on a fuse. The question is, what's going to light it? And right now, as Mia crosses the street, back into her world of bus schedules, fast food wrappers, and missed phone calls, Daniel watches her disappear. He doesn't know her name. She doesn't know his. But both of them feel it. That strange, invisible pull. That quiet knowing that something is just beginning. The next morning, Mia was back at her sewing table, a creaky fold-out desk shoved into the corner of her tiny room, trying to rework a denim jacket she'd pulled out of the clearance bin at Goodwill. Her fingers moved fast, patching in floral fabric and soft faux leather strips, trying to breathe life into something old and discarded. But her mind wasn't on the jacket. It was on that man from the gas station. She'd replayed the moment a dozen times, second-guessing every look, every word. Why did he ask about fashion design? Did he really mean it, or was it just something to say to a girl in a crisis? She wanted to forget it, wanted to move on, but her gut told her not to. And she'd learned over the years that ignoring her gut only led to missed chances. By the afternoon, the city was buzzing. TikTok feeds were filled with CEO glow-up montages, people sharing behind-the-scenes videos of tech founders, how I became a millionaire by 30 vlogs, and reels about dressing for success on a budget. The irony wasn't lost on Mia as she scrolled through her phone. Her For You page seemed to be screaming at her. Take the leap. Do something. But doing something required more than courage. It required timing and luck, and maybe a little madness. So she did the one thing that scared her most. She opened her laptop, dug through her inbox, and found the email she'd ignored 3 days ago, the rejection for her fashion grant under the name Emmy Blake. But something about that man's words stuck in her head. You have an eye for detail. It didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. It felt like unfinished business. So she clicked reply. Just a short message. Nothing dramatic. Just asking for feedback on her application. Asking if there was a way to reapply next quarter. She didn't expect a response. Certainly not from anyone high up. But she hit send anyway. And that's when the real twist began. Because across the city, in a glass-walled office on the top floor of a tech hub, Daniel was reading an internal report when a notification popped up on his screen. An email, routed to him by mistake, from a name he didn't recognize, Emmy Blake. At first, he almost deleted it. He got dozens of emails every hour. But something stopped him. He clicked it open and scanned the message. Then he saw the attached portfolio, and his breath caught. The designs. The textures. The careful hand-stitching. It was her. The girl from the gas station. Mia. He knew it instantly. And she had no idea that he'd already seen this portfolio once before and passed on it. Because here's the thing no one knew. Daniel hadn't just been reviewing applications last week. He'd been told to slash the grant program entirely. The board had voted, quietly and unanimously, that the funds were being reallocated. Too many risks. Not enough return. Daniel hadn't agreed with the decision, but he hadn't fought it either. Not until now. Now he had a face to go with one of those files. A story. A voice. And that changed everything. But complicating matters even more was someone else in the picture. A new character. Quietly introduced but carrying weight. Julia Stanton. Daniel's ex-girlfriend and current head of PR for the company. Ambitious. Brilliant. And watching everything. She'd seen Daniel's face the moment he returned from the gas station. Noticed how distracted he'd been. How unlike himself. And she wasn't happy. Julia had built her own future on Daniel's rise, had carefully curated the company's brand, their clean-cut image, and the narrative of Daniel as a visionary who never let emotions interfere with business. So, when she found out he'd been corresponding with a rejected applicant, alarm bells started ringing. Back in her apartment, Mia received a reply she never expected, short, cryptic, and signed. Just, Come by our community development office tomorrow at 3 p.m. Bring your sketches. There was no name, no title, just an address. At first, she thought it was spam or a prank, but something told her it was real, that this was the thread, the one she had to pull. She almost didn't go. She almost let fear win again. But something deeper pushed her forward, a feeling she couldn't shake. And so the next day, wearing her best thrifted blouse and jeans she'd patched 3 times over, she took the bus to the address. The building was sleek, polished, and way out of place in her part of town. Inside, she was met not by Daniel, but by a woman, polished, sharply dressed, with icy eyes that scanned Mia like a barcode. Julia. She introduced herself as head of community relations and offered Mia a tight, polite smile. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We've reviewed your designs. Impressive for someone self-taught. But I'm curious, why the alias?" Mia, confused but not intimidated, explained that she wanted the work to stand on its own, that she wasn't sure anyone would take her seriously otherwise. Julia nodded slowly, like she was storing the answer for later use. Then, like a bomb quietly ticking down, Julia added, "You know, Daniel doesn't usually involve himself in these matters. But I suppose yesterday changed that." That's when it hit Mia. He remembered. He knew. And suddenly, all her questions boiled to the surface. Why hadn't he said anything at the gas station? Why was this happening now? And most of all, was this some kind of test or a trap? Back in his office, Daniel watched the meeting unfold on a monitor. Silent. Observing.
Torn.
He hadn't meant for Julia to be the one to greet Mia, but the timing hadn't worked out. And now, watching the cold professionalism Julia wielded like a blade, he felt a pang of guilt. He didn't want Mia to be another file, another pitch, another charity case. But he also wasn't ready to step into the story yet, not with everything he was hiding. Because here's the next twist. Daniel wasn't just reviewing the grant program. He was quietly developing a new project, a secret initiative to fund young, independent designers and creators across the country. A direct-to-consumer fashion tech app designed to connect underground talent with real buyers. And Mia's aesthetic? It was exactly the kind of authenticity he needed to make the launch succeed. But involving her meant pulling her into a world that chewed people up, that exposed them. And Daniel wasn't sure if she was ready or if he was. As the meeting ended, Julia slid a folder across the table. "You'll hear from us," she said with a corporate smile. But as Mia stood and turned to leave, Julia added, "Just be careful who you trust. Especially men who make big promises with soft eyes." It was a warning wrapped in silk. Mia didn't respond. She just walked out, heart pounding, feeling like she'd stepped into something bigger than she understood. Outside, as the sun dipped low and painted the streets gold, Mia stood still for a long time. In her hands was that folder. Inside, something real was starting to take shape. But she didn't know yet that someone was already digging into her past, that her connection to the company went deeper than she realized, that her late mother had once worked for the very man Daniel had built his empire with and left behind. And that man? He was back, quietly, behind the scenes, watching, waiting, and ready to burn everything down if it meant revenge. So here we are. The threads are tightening. The past is resurfacing. And Mia? She's walking into a future that's brighter and more dangerous than anything she imagined. The next few days passed in a blur, each hour stretching longer than the last. Mia kept checking her phone, refreshing her email, pacing the floor. The silence from the company was deafening, and her nerves frayed with each passing minute. She tried to distract herself by sewing, watching trending YouTube videos on DIY fashion transformations and startup success stories, but nothing could quiet the questions spinning in her head. What did Julia mean by that cryptic warning? Why hadn't Daniel reached out directly? Had she imagined the connection entirely? Or worse, had she been used? Her mind raced through every possibility, every angle. But the truth, as it turned out, was something no one could have predicted. 3 days after the meeting, a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. A man in a dark blazer stepped out and handed her a sealed envelope with nothing but her name on the front. No return address, no logo. Inside was a single card. Warehouse 9. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. Come alone. The moment felt cinematic, like a scene out of a suspense movie trending on Netflix. But this wasn't fiction. And Mia, heart pounding and palms slick with sweat, knew she was about to step into something that would change her life forever. The warehouse was abandoned from the outside, rusted shutters, cracked windows, graffiti tagging the concrete walls. But inside, it was something entirely different. Soft ambient lighting bathed the space in warm tones. A minimalist runway stretched down the center, surrounded by mannequins dressed in bold, edgy designs. And at the far end, standing in a charcoal suit with a tie undone around his neck, was Daniel. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was thick, almost reverent. Then he stepped forward and said, "You made it." Mia crossed her arms, trying to mask the fear bubbling under her skin. "Why am I here?" she asked, voice steady but wary. Daniel walked toward one of the mannequins and pulled back the cloth covering its shoulders, revealing a dress that stopped Mia in her tracks. It was hers, one of the first designs she ever made. A sleeveless, hand-stitched piece she'd posted anonymously online 2 years ago. She thought it had vanished into the digital void, unseen and forgotten. But here it was, recreated in fabric she couldn't afford, displayed like it belonged in a Vogue spread. Daniel turned to her slowly. "You're not just a designer," he said. "You're a storyteller. And I need your story." What he explained next left Mia stunned. The real purpose of the secret program he'd been building was not just to fund creators, but to dismantle the elitism baked into the fashion and tech industries. He was starting a fashion tech hybrid company, Threadline, one that would spotlight unheard voices, grassroots talent, and self-made artists who didn't fit the glossy PR mold. He'd used Mia's designs as his prototype to pitch the board in secret. Her raw style, emotional seams, and unapologetic authenticity had been the proof he needed. "But you didn't ask," she interrupted. "You used my work." Daniel looked down, shame flickering across his face. "I didn't know how to ask," he admitted. "I wasn't sure if you'd trust me after everything. And I didn't know if I deserved that trust." Just as Mia was trying to process his words, the warehouse door slammed open, and Julia walked in. But she wasn't alone. Behind her was an older man with silver hair and a grim expression. Julia's voice rang through the space like a shot. "You thought you could hide this?" she said to Daniel, holding up documents, the original grant termination papers, financial records, and a list of names. But what hit hardest was the last file she held in her hand. "You didn't tell her who you really are," she snapped. "You didn't tell her that her mother was fired by your father, or that the reason her family lost everything was because of your company's decisions." Mia turned to Daniel, eyes wide. "Is that true?" she whispered. Daniel's silence was answer enough. The twist landed like a thunderclap. Years ago, Mia's mother had worked as a seamstress for one of Daniel's father's old textile investments. When the business folded under shady dealings and cost-cutting, dozens of women were laid off, without severance. Families were destroyed, including Mia's. It was a buried scandal, scrubbed from the internet, hushed in court. Daniel had only discovered the truth recently, after his father's death. He had wanted to make things right, to rebuild something meaningful from the ashes, but he hadn't known how to face the past. Mia stood frozen, her head spinning. Everything clicked. The strange sense of familiarity, the cold warning from Julia, the secrecy. All of it was rooted in a history she hadn't even known she was part of. But in that moment, she didn't scream or storm out. She just looked Daniel in the eye and said, "So what happens now?" What happened next shocked even Julia. Mia stepped forward, picked up a sketchbook from the display table, and opened it to the first page. "You want my story?" she said. "Then I get to tell it on my terms." She didn't walk away from the project. She took it over. Over the next month, Mia became the face of Threadline, on her own conditions. She negotiated equity, co-creative control, and a platform for others like her. Self-taught creators, marginalized artists, and underdog voices. Her first fashion drop, dubbed Stitched in Silence, sold out in less than 48 hours after going viral on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, where her behind-the-scenes videos exploded with comments like, "She's the real deal," "This is what fashion should be," and finally, "A story that matters." The final twist? Julia didn't fight it. Instead, she pivoted, rebranding herself as a media strategist for ethical fashion and quietly launching a YouTube channel where she interviewed disruptors in the industry, including Mia. Even the man who once tried to bury the scandal, Mia's mother's former boss, resurfaced publicly, offering an apology during a live stream that broke viewership records. The internet loved it. The redemption arc. The girl boss moment. The realness. And for once, the trending keywords weren't just about fashion or wealth. They were about authenticity, resilience, and owning your narrative. And Daniel? He didn't become the hero of the story. He didn't need to. He became something better, an ally who stepped back and let someone else shine. In the end, Mia's story wasn't about a broken bra or a CEO in disguise. It was about legacy, about courage, about how sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is to stitch the pieces of their past into something beautiful and wear it with pride. So, if you clicked on this video wondering why a girl would fix her bra using a stranger's car window, now you know. It wasn't just a wardrobe malfunction. It was the beginning of a revolution. And now that you've made it to the end, tell me, would you have walked away? Or would you have stepped into the spotlight too?